So Congress is now saying that they screwed up. They didn't prioritize the American people. They prioritized other things. And now, well, they're sorry. But here's what we know. There's 41 million people in the United States that are currently living in poverty. And of those 41 million people, the average household brings in $304 less than the poverty line per week. Yeah, $304 less per week. That's pretty substantial. Now, the real problem moving into 2023 is the amount of people in poverty, but combined with inflation in certain indexes. These are things like food, shelter, and utilities. This is a major problem. And what we've been hearing is we need to provide more for the American people. We need to help the American people get through this crisis. However, in the recent bill, there was not a lot for the American people. Now, I want to share something with you that is going to completely blow your mind. We saw Congress pass a $1.7 trillion government funding bill. There was $858 billion in that bill that went for defense. This is for the Pentagon, the military. Okay? But one lawmaker who didn't want to be identified said this, that we might have made a big mistake. They provided too much for Ukraine. There were too many earmarks that took away from key priorities. People are pretending like the fight against inflation is over, and yet we spent more money on our military even though the Pentagon continues to fail their audits. Now, I don't know who this person is, okay? But let's kind of dissect what they said. Let's start with the audits. Now, I had to look into this, that the Pentagon is failing their audits. Well, here's what we know. The Pentagon is the only government agency that has not passed a single audit. This comes from like 1970. They have not passed a single audit. The Department of Defense, they continue to screw things up, screw people over, and yet we continue to give them billions and billions of dollars. Yet, we're not just giving them money. Every single year, we increase their funding. Just this year alone, we gave them $858 billion. This passed last week. But you know how much it costs to run an audit? According to reports, it costs $450 million for every single audit. It also costs roughly $400 million to fix whatever the audit uncovers. So $850 million, almost $1 billion, just for an audit. Now, whoever this lawmaker is right. We continue to push billions of dollars to people that are giving back to our lawmakers. But it's interesting. And the reason why, and again, I'm all for a very strong military. I think that's great for us to have a strong military, especially when we're not the favorite for some countries. But when we are footing the bill and yet our lawmakers give weapons and goods away to other countries, it makes no sense. We gave $45 billion to Ukraine. But you know how much President Biden initially asked for? He asked for like $37 to $38 billion. And we give him $7 to $8 billion more? That makes absolutely no sense. Now, instead of wasting $850 million, we could have used some of that money. We could have used some of the money for, like the earmarks, right? This lawmaker says that there were too many earmarks in the bill. There were over 14,000 earmarks in this government funding bill for fiscal year 2023. That cost us over $16 billion. So we're spending $858 billion on military, plus additional $1 billion on their audits, plus we had $16 billion in earmarks to go to buildings and roads and bridges and things like that the states could have easily pretty much paid for, not the federal government. But again, and lawmakers are saying we could have easily used that money to provide affordable housing, shore up Social Security, add on additional benefits, increase food stamps, pay down our deficit, or priorities like that. Interesting. But yet it's very interesting that lawmakers wait until after the bill's passed, and then they say, sorry, we probably should have done better, but this is all we got. We were kind of under a time crunch. But what's interesting is lawmakers are under this time crunch every single year. They're always worried about the government funding bill. They're always worried about it right up, come September 30th. It's like, we didn't have enough time. We've only had a year to negotiate this, but yet nothing ever gets done. They do a stopgap bill, push them back into, maybe a month, maybe a couple months. In this case, it pushed them back to December 16th, and then they needed one additional week. So that got pushed back to December 23rd. So here's the problem. Additional spending of money that is flowing to these different agencies, right? For example, the military, which is great. Again, I strongly support the military, but I don't support these military contractors and us spending $858 billion on equipment that probably doesn't cost $858 billion. We're probably paying for these companies to do their research, right? For research and development, for new technology. We're paying for it, right? But yet, chances are we're never going to see it. Now, what do we do? And what do we do, and how do we get more for the American people? Well, this kind of brings me to the next point. We are expecting a recession. The expectation is we will be in a recession within the next 2 quarters. So sometime in the first 6 months of 2023, we will dip into a recession. That is the expectation. And what happens during a recession? We see unemployment go up. We know food prices are going to continue to remain high, possibly go up even more. Shelter is likely going to go up even higher, probably for most of 2023. Utilities, well, this isn't going to come down. Utilities not coming down when we are seeing shortages, when we are seeing oil most likely go up because of China, because of demand here in the U.S. and other countries as well. And while costs are increasing, lawmakers are saying, you know what? We should provide for the American people. But yet the big bill that they could have passed to provide additional assistance, well, they passed it without much for the American people. So just know that even though Congress says, you know what, we screwed up, we should have provided a little bit more for our priorities and the people of our country, you know what, it's okay, because we'll do that next year. We'll do that in 2023. So here's what I can tell you. Social Security is going to be discussed. Will it be addressed? I don't know. Not a lawmaker. I'm just a guy on YouTube. But according to reports that lawmakers are going to discuss Social Security, they're going to discuss the child tax credits, they will discuss corporate tax breaks, they will discuss the debt ceiling. They need to address it, but they will discuss it first. They're going to do all these things. They're going to try to provide for the American people. They will try to bring a little bit more stability into the economy. They will try to do all this stuff. But at the same time, they don't know if anything is actually going to come from it. But they will discuss it. And like Nancy Pelosi stated about 3 weeks ago, is she doesn't know if something's going to pass, but it's fun to talk about. Okay, we will see. But that is what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates. Again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.